often when I'm putting the issues together, there is at least one story that makes me cry. And I'm not actually super emotional, so that's sort of a good thing.
You know, in 10 years at Tin House, I've had them maybe half a dozen times where it's just like immediately like just floored by a story. But that excitement, that promise, it almost becomes like a drug.
I mean, I'm sure you've all read stories where you're just like, it's so good, or it's a special quality and someone wants to know what makes it so good, and you can talk about it for a long time, but there is just sort of a spark.
I think the more you can submit, the better off you're going to be in a handful of ways. One, you're going to grow a little thicker skin and be more open to edits and less totally married to the words as you have set them down on the page, right? Because it's all a draft until you die, basically.
In my experience, I think that writers who are more willing to take edits are actually more experienced writers. It's usually the less experienced writers or new writers who are a little bit more like, don't fuss with my house kind of thing.
Usually we find that the writers are really open to that sort of thing. You know, their writing is a journey, and getting it to the point of acceptance and then to the point of publication is also just a part of that journey.
As an editor, I think your job is to read the piece closer in a way than anyone is ever going to read it. And there's a weird intimacy that arises between an editor and an author one is working with that I think often gets overlooked.
If you get a personal rejection, that's so encouraging. It sort of maybe lets you know you're on the right track, but it also lets you gauge sort of how your work's being perceived in the field, and you can make adjustments in terms of editing the draft or just adjustments in terms of the submission pool that you're approaching.
No money is ever going to be enough money for the amount of time that you put into your thing. It's always going to be insultingly low.
Generally what I'll do is I'll take my tax return money at the end of every year, and I'll just blow it all on subscriptions for that year.
A writer has this like the feeling like, maybe I'm the next Tolstoy. Like, maybe I'm Jane Austen, maybe I'm Frank Bedard, or if you are not, there's some sense of failure there. I feel like we're all been cultured to strive for a certain level of recognition that can feel hollow if you actually look at it. Like, you see it in social media for sure, like how many likes you get on certain things. The participation is sort of what matters most.
One of the reasons why I work on a literary journal is because Gertrude Press was founded shortly, I don't know how much you know about queer history, but was founded shortly after the Matthew Shepard lynching in Wyoming, and it was in Colorado, and so it was really in direct response to a clear and obvious need by the people who were affected most by that to have a voice and have a place. And especially when you are sort of directly responding to or directly affected by one thing, you don't suddenly come up with an entire novel or an entire collection of things about that thing, right? That thing moves you to tears, and you can maybe focus that into one short story or one poem or a couple of poems, and those pieces need a place.